Reverb can make or break your mix, and finding the right plugin can be a game changer. My name is Sultan, this is Integraudio, and today we're talking about the Pulsar Primavera, a plugin known for its classic lush reverbs with a modern twist. But before we get into it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell notification. Let's go. So the interface is divided into three sections. You've got your preamp section, the main section, and the output section. The preamp section controls the tonal shaping and gain staging before the reverb signal is processed. You have your drive knob that controls the amount of saturation applied to the signal. Higher values create more distortion, simulating the behavior of analog preamps. Next to this is a switch that toggles between two preamp modes. The tube adds warmth and harmonic distortion typical of cube amplifiers. The germanium feature is a different character with softer saturation and subtle coloration. You also have a high-pass and low-pass filter. Next we have the reverb control section. The pre-delay adjusts the time before the reverb starts, creating space between the dry sound and the reverb tail. The tension knob shapes the spring tension for different tonal characteristics. Tighter springs produce sharper reflections, while looser settings yield smoother results. The larger decay knob controls the length of the reverb tail. That means how long the sound reverberates. The excitation knob is very responsive, and it adds energy to the springs, affecting the liveliness and intensity of the reverb response. Finally, we have the width knob that adjusts the stereo width of the reverb effect from mono to wide stereo imaging. At the bottom, we have a strip of buttons that emulate different classic reverb units. So at the far left, we have the twang button, which is inspired by classic Fender-style spring reverb units found in vintage guitar amplifiers. Next to this is the HR12 button, inspired by the Hammond Type 4 reverb tank used in early organs and PA systems. The SR202 is reminiscent of the Philips or Fairchild spring reverb units used in early broadcasting and studio applications. If you're a fan of dub and reggae style spring reverbs, the Tubby button is just for you. We also have the RE201, which is inspired by the legendary Roland Space Echo RE201 unit that combines tape delay with spring reverb. And finally, we have the Great British Spring, a long tube style spring reverb from the UK, popular in studios during the 1980s. Finally, we have the output section. The ducking knob controls the amount of dynamic ducking applied to the reverb. Higher settings reduce the reverb when the dry signal is present, keeping the sound clear and uncluttered. The mix knob adjusts the blend between the dry signal and the reverb. Turning it down to 0 will give you only the dry signal, while turning it up to its maximum will give you the reverb signal only. The presence knob enhances the clarity and brightness of the reverb. And finally, the volume knob sets the overall output level of the reverb. Okay, so now let's have a listen and see how the Pulsar Primavera can be applied to drums. I prepared a drum track here. I'm going to loop it, and first we're going to hear it dry, and then you can check how it sounds with the plugin on. So here we go. So that's how the drums sound without any effects, any reverb. And now we're going to engage our plugin through the switch right here, and you'll instantly hear the difference. In fact, let me just play the drums first and then I'll switch it on so you can tell the difference. So immediately you can tell that you're hearing some spring reverb at the back. I'm starting off with a preset called Tube Creamy Drum Goodness, which is a good place to start. I kind of like the settings. I'm going to start playing with the controls now, so we can check what changes. So turning up the drive. You'll hear how the snare's sound has changed. It's more driven now. I think I'll leave it here. Toggling between the tube and germanium sound now. So you can tell that the tube sounds a bit more warm as compared to the germanium. Now let's play with the pre-delay. Interesting. How about let's now adjust the spring tension. Let's take it down first. And now let's crank it up. The excitation knob is what makes the springs come alive. So instantly when I turn it up, you see the movement in the springs. So now let's look at how the Pulsar plugin can be used on vocals. I've got a vocal track here. I'm going to play it dry first. Let's have a listen.
Look at the stars in the cold sky. See how they shine. I think I love you. Look at the stars in the cold sky.
So now let's engage the plugin. So here it is. Let's look at some more presets. So we have a dedicated vocal section. Let's try Airy Springs. This one's quite nice. This one's quite airy, as the name suggests. How about Megaphone Next Door? Yep, you can hear the distorted sound immediately, reminiscent of megaphones. This one's all about a mono vibe. So it's a lot of fun to play with. You can experiment with all the presets that you have. You have several controls at your disposal, so you can make your own presets. It's a lot of fun to play with and a good tool in your arsenal. Alright guys, so now comes the fun part. I wanted to play this section live so we can experience it together. I got my Cherry Strat hooked up to the Pulsar Primavera, and we're going to cycle through some presets and see what sounds best. So this one is called Acoustic Guitar Hall. Just by the name of it, I think this one's going to be very wide sounding. Let's crank up the excitation and see what changes. This one's going to sound crazy. Let's see. Alright, so let's now look at another preset. This one's called American Amp. And by the look of things, since the twang button is pressed, I'm guessing this one's going to be really bright, twangy, and with a little bit of drive. So I'm kind of tempted to play something like this. This one's called Reactant Spacecraft. I'm kind of curious to see how this sounds. Let's have a listen. It's a bit weird. Let's turn down the excitation. Here's another one. This one's called Piano Springs. Let's have a listen. So that's our take on the Pulsar Primavera. With its dynamic reverbs and versatile controls, it can be a great addition to any musical setup. Which feature did you like the best? Let us know in the comments below. So don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you can get to know about all our future gear reviews. Until next time, this is Sultan signing off. Goodbye.